I asked Reddit to explain to me the best and worst things about ESO in 2 different posts so that I could read through mountains and mountains of toxic, pretentious internet hate. No, but as a new player, I find the banter around the game interesting because it definitely is so great but also boring and dull at moments. It's almost like its entire player base is perpetually leaving and returning to the game. Anyway, jumping right in and tearing off the band-aid, let's read through some of the negative aspects and cross our fingers that Zeus has a gander at it. Now, I didn't include too much trolling, but mostly took a focus on some of the repeated complaints and agreed upon issues. Now then. ESO goes from easy to too hard with the snap of a finger. There is no gradual progression, normal dungeon can be steamrolled, so they don't teach any team play or group coordination. So when you go vet, it's a big slap in the face. Also, the jump from overland content to anything else is too much. Then you have trials, which hopefully will be fixed in the next update, where you gotta get a group together, but most groups won't take you because of certain things. Agreed, no difficulty curve whatsoever. There's a face roll yawning while lazily clicking buttons, and then there's how am I instantly dead? Nothing in between. What the heck is the point of having mechanics if they're so unforgiving that you don't even have time to watch? See, I haven't exactly played Trials yet, but I do a lot of overland and then just dungeon content, and at times it does go from like everything being easy to you finding one world boss that's just impossible to actually fight. And then I agree with the second person's comment here where they're talking about how it's just lazily clicking buttons, and that's kind of like the case for all MMOs, so you can't hold that too much against them, but they should do more to actually have the combat feel more present, I guess. Unplayable without ESO Plus because the inventory is cluttered all the time, but if you're only a casual player like me, ESO Plus is hardly worth it. Wish they offered some discounted light subscription with just the craft bag. I can live without free crowns, 10% boost in ESO Plus deals. Just curious, would you also be okay without access to the DLCs in a light subscription? Because I feel like that's mostly the cost. Personally, I have no problem paying my $15 a month and getting my ESO Plus craft bag to be infinite. And I've been ESO Plus since I started playing the game, so I've never actually experienced what it's like to play without it. But because of all the materials I get all the time, I could not imagine having to actually sit there and go through my materials all the time just to have some inventory space. But I do think it is a good idea to make a light version or call it something else, or just have certain aspects of ESO Plus be available for purchase, especially the craft bag element. I think that should be able to be purchased like as a standalone, because it's definitely like kind of like a manufactured problem. Like the only reason they have to give you infinite space with ESO Plus is because they didn't give you infinite space of crafting materials across your characters in the first place. Here's a good one. Stupid ass hip armor. Yes, there we go. Falls hip armor have been a part of historical armor for centuries. However, I have to agree with you as they are stupidly implemented in ESO. Falls are farquads. Falls are basically a metal skirt attached to the codpiece and cover the entire hip area with just a separate loose panel flap covering the arched cheeks so they can sit down and or ride a horse. Not just a small part on the side like in most of the ESO armors that would allow an attacker to stab you in the groin. What nonsense. Good thing we are being historically accurate when we have walking, talking giant lizard people conjuring fireballs. Good point, my sir. Good point. The constant changes on everything, every time I have a build that I'm happy with, they nerf that set. They also change how skills look and work, making me dislike my own main character after 8 years of playing. This was it for me. I left 2 years ago with one of the many champion system combat ability revamps. I felt like I needed a PhD in ESO to redo all my characters every 6 months. Who has the time? No, that's definitely a vibe, and it's weird because ESO is very welcoming to new players, but at the same time, if you do want to do anything like a little bit higher than usual, it's like you have to know about all of the gear over the past decade. Like, it's very weird because it's like everything can work, but if you want to be a notch above, and I'd imagine this is especially important for PvP, everything can work for PvE for the most part, but if you want to actually stand out, you can't actually, get there in a reasonable fashion. You'd have to know all the past gear that's been out there, there's 2,000 quests on the game, 2,000 plus quests, something like that, and you'd have to know all of that, all the drops and all that, just to make sure that you're kind of a cut above the rest in a PvP scenario, or just, maxing and minning. Like, you'd have to know everything. No matter how much I love this game, I'd never be able to give this game the highest rating possible because of how gross and scammy the crown currency feels. You can't just buy the Assassins and Thieves Guild, for example, and have to figure out the conversion for how much it would actually cost you. Also, it's silly that you can buy parts of the game to own, but the item bag can't be bought even for a ridiculous $60 or something. The thing that gets me are the crown gems specifically. It's not enough that the base crown currency is abstracted and the prices are outrageous. They decided they needed another layer of abstraction and price bloating to really go after the whales and addicts. Now, I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the ball sack or anything, but I'm just saying, let's not tempt them with making it cost $60. Yeah, that's definitely a good point. That what the heck is the deal with all these games? In fact, not just ESO, but like the base items will be like 650 crowns, but you can buy 500 crowns or you can buy 1,500 crowns. That's not it exactly, but you get my point. It's never enough to get just what you want. You always have to buy in excess because the one that's below is just a little bit not enough. And yeah, the crown gems, because I still don't understand those. I mean, yeah, I got 5 of them the other day just from opening crates and kind of like destroying something, I guess, but I have no idea how those work. So if you know how crown gems work, definitely give me an explanation in the comments below because I could use the help. Here we go. The people. Some of these people are insufferable. I completed most of the single player content, and anything I'd actually want to spend crowns on hasn't cycled back to the store, and I'm tired of caring. The FOMO marketing must be a huge double-edged sword for them. There are things people want that don't cycle around for years. See, for me, I haven't been playing the game long enough to really have that like, oh, I wish that would come back around because, you know, for a while I didn't even know that they did that. But, you know, I mean, a lot of stuff in the crown store is all just aesthetics and stuff like that, which is like the same for most games, but I personally do feel the FOMO when it comes to like actual mounts. Like, I don't know, mounts are very specific that you can you kind of want your mount to match your character. So sometimes I'll see a mount and I can't get it, then I feel the FOMO there. But hardcore players, I know that the FOMO thing is a huge thing. The laughably easy overland content and the normal dungeon difficulty. I 100% believe that if that content would be a little harder, there wouldn't be nearly as many players that have no clue what's going on, because it would encourage thinking about what you're doing and pay attention to possible mechanics happening. As a new player, I honestly do agree with this because there are a lot of mechanics of the game and just certain things that I genuinely don't care about, or not that I don't care, but I just haven't learned. And there's no incentive to learn it because I can just spam light and heart attack. I don't even need skills for a lot of the overland stuff. So it's like I'll be fighting like a goat or something, and then I'll like gotta put on my armor, get up my offense for something that's gonna take me 3 hits. It's just like I'm just getting in the habit of doing the things, but it doesn't even feel like it matters. The fact that the game doesn't really matter until you are CP 160. Crafting content, gear, etc. doesn't matter before that, as everything is easy and tailored towards players at all levels, which dilutes the fun from leveling up. Everything feels samey, rewards don't matter. Also, the fact of grabbing like a staff skill for a class that is like a warrior is pretty much necessary for some builds. I'm a warrior. I don't want to level a staff. What is that, FFS? Is that for fuck's sake? Dungeons. I would like to have an explore mode where you can play with people that want to do the dungeon story instead of speedrunning them and not knowing what it was all about. And you should be able to repeat the story of dungeons. This would be a big improvement to the game. I also want to actually do the dungeon quests for the quests and lore. That's one of the main reasons I even picked up ESO after being an avid Skyrim lover. I wanted to learn more about the lore and stuff, but I go into these dungeons, I want to get a little grasp of the sweet little life of Tamriel that's happening, but everybody's already halfway through the dungeon killing the final boss. But I mean, that's what guilds are for and stuff like that. But, you know, what do I look like being like, hey guys, I ain't gonna do the quests and I'm new to the game and I know you've been playing forever and I've already heard this quest, but I need to really soak this up. I guess at that point you could honestly solo them, but that would require you to level up and do other things. That way you don't lose out on the dungeon story. You'd have to level up another way, then solo once you're strong enough to solo, then do the dungeons. Other players. People who have been playing the game for ages shit on new players for not having enough DPS, not tanking properly, not healing well. It goes on and on. Just help others out. This one I kind of get where they're coming from, but at the same time, I mean, you know, if you're going to play an MMO, you got to learn how to play the MMO. And the internet's a resource, so, you know. But I get it. But I also, on the other hand, like, one time I respec'd my character for tank, so I didn't have a whole lot of DPS, but I forgot to mark myself as a tank. And somebody picked me up for DPS, and let's just say they weren't too happy in that dungeon. Overabundance of microtransactions. 2. Lack of meaningful class content, quests, guilds, even NPCs would go a long way. Again, with the whole entire crown store, it's like when the game is completely easy and feels the same regardless of level, and then you have a crown store with disproportionate pricing to the actual crowns you can buy and also crown gems that are confusing. It's just a whole lot of microtransactions, and not only a whole lot, but a lot of them are for useless things like, just dyes and stuff. But I mean, that's what people like. That's what people like. But again, it doesn't feel like any of the items matter. And then lack of meaningful class content. Yes, I would want it to mean more the class that I'm in. That should be a next DLC. Like just I don't know what they would call it, but just make it mean something to be a warden. Make it mean something to be a dragon knight. Have it change up with conversations or quests and stuff. But I think my biggest thing in that regard of the overabundance of microtransactions, there is a category that's like, there's a thing that says non-combat pets, but like in my 2 or so years of playing the game, the only combat pet that I know of is the wardens that get that bear. Other than that, it's all non-combat pets. Well, they should be selling as combat pets. Why are they selling all non-combat pets? It's stupid. Before they get ahead of themselves, I just want to say, if you do sell a combat pet, make sure that they're different from each other. Make sure they're not all just doing 5 damage, you know what I mean? Don't make it pay to win, but give them all their own little perks, Constant changes that make my perfectly good build unplayable. Story that has no order. This I agree with. It is a little disheartening when you're playing the game and none of the quests actually relate or matter. On the positive side, people can start wherever they want. On the negative side, why does anything matter then? None of the quests actually have continuity with each other. So cool, you can start any place you want, but also like, doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. It's just like, I wish that when you did certain quest lines, there are consequences to your actions, or at least some continuity there. They knew that you did this. And especially weird when you do a quest and a character dies, just to see them come back in another continent. And it's a little weird. I mean, I get what they're trying to do, and it's appreciated that they give you the freedom to start wherever, but at least some things should have some continuity. Now that we've gone through the negatives, I also asked people specifically what made them want to play ESO and why did they stay. So this is our more positive outlook on the game. It's just always a game I can come back to, and I feel like the fan base is pretty welcoming. A lot of nice people in ESO. Agree. Somebody would have told that guy that said everybody was insufferable. Customization and fashion. Everything I do is in the name of getting more fashion, mounts, skins, and titles. I thought it would be Skyrim Online. Also, crippling addiction keeps me here. A lot of people did think it was going to be Skyrim Online, which, that's going to be a lot of the people that say that that's why they came. Now that I am playing, I was curious if it would be like Skyrim, and to me, for all the things I love Skyrim for, it's close enough. I mean, aside from like, there's limitations to skills and things like that, so it's not like you get 5 classes of magic, but it's good enough and close to the lore to me, to Skyrim, that I love it completely, and I think it's amazing on that aspect. It's not like, I'm not one of the people that's like, oh, it's nothing like Skyrim. I mean, I also understand it's MMO, and I used to play MapleStory when I was younger. I was the MMO guy when I was younger. I absolutely love going around and harvesting mats. I learned that mats means materials. It's just a relaxing, fun, piece of candy adventure as I go about the land waiting for dungeon queues to pop. Helps that the payoff is really good gear. Started because I needed a new MMO to play and stay for all the cosmetic goodies I can get while grinding dungeons. That person might be a psychopath. They love harvesting materials, bro. Oh man. I like the satisfaction of completing all of my crafting traits on my craftmaster, but there's nothing I hate more than getting off of my mount to scrape off some runes. My favorite game of all time is Skyrim, and I was devastated when I finished it. I needed more. So I looked into the Elder Scrolls series and found ESO. It's perfect, holds the vibe of the Elder Scrolls universe, has so much lore content, multiplayer, personalized combat / class, and character, etc, etc. Everything I look for in a game. Plus, it's so immersive, and I feel like there's always something to do. That's another one I agree with. I think they did pretty well at the whole immersive world, but, they could have did better with the difficulty of that immersive world to make things matter more. It's immersive, it just doesn't matter. The combat for sure. I know some people will disagree, but it's what keeps me playing the game. I try to play other games and just get disappointed the combat doesn't feel as good as ESO. I'm a fan of the combat system as well. It's not too complex for me, especially when I was a new player. Now that I'm much more experienced and a lot better, I do still find it somewhat challenging to play well. Combat's definitely more engaging than other MMOs, but not as good as other single-player games. But I can't play single-player games with a friend. That is a very logical way of thinking. No, but I agree in the fact that the combat is easy to execute. It is very comfortable to do, but there is no challenge in the overworld for that combat. And people will say, you need to do endgame content, you need to do vet content. Well, how are the endgame and veteran players feeling, huh? Ask them, how are they feeling? Because I am not satisfied and I'm only about 2, maybe 3 years in. Dungeons can be what they're going to be. I just want a challenge in all the general overland. That way when I'm running to go explore Riften, there's a chance I might die, but there's no chance I'm dying. There's no chance I'm dying. I know I'm going to make it to my destination. I started to play ESO because a friend recommended it. It was on sale at the time. I'm a D&D fan, but I've never heard of the Elder Scrolls before. One thing that I love about ESO is the classes are not restricted on what they can do and what gear they can wear. I find this flexibility really refreshing. I find this flexibility also allows me to make a character that fits with the concept of a fighter/wizard hybrid without feeling like it's a liability. When I first started playing, I was really impressed with the immersion when traveling throughout the world in the game. With no cutscenes other than a few in the main quest, the world feels alive. I overhear NPCs talking as I walk by, which is a nice way to hook me into a quest. I found the writing for the quests quite impressive. I agree here. I love the fact that they're all just sitting there talking, yammering out things, and you might just want to click on them and get their quest. And also hearing them as you pass by doesn't automatically give it to you, which is great. That is great. And so you can just always come back, resume, and hear that conversation again, and then just, jump into the quest. That is a great, great, great thing about the game. But the thing about being able to wear any gear and stuff like that, I mean, it depends on what I don't know, that can be taken one or two ways, because it does matter if you're trying to do a certain build, but also it's nice that it doesn't. But also, that's also the problem we have with ESO, that nothing really matters, So when it comes to ESO nowadays, it seems that the general idea is that it's amazing for your socialization. It's amazing for the lore and questing. It's amazing that you can do solo or multiplayer group content. But the currency of the crown store just is annoying that you can't just buy what you need. You always have to buy in abundance. When it comes to playing by yourself or with friends and overland content, it's just too easy. And a lot of the things you do in ESO feel like they don't matter. And that's not just for old players that have been here for a while. It's for new players as well. You get the game, and after a month or so, you already start to feel the boringness. And if you don't, it's because you haven't realized that that's the whole game. You can actually experience the most of ESO within a month. And if anybody out there is listening that has a hand in these things, if there's one thing that you could do, please, please make the overworld creatures have different stats and abilities. And if you think they do, just know it's not enough that we feel it. I know you're out there working hard, but please just make the general overland content harder. You don't have to make locked level regions, but make it locked in the fact that you'll get destroyed, Because I haven't experienced that. Everywhere I go, I know I will survive. Make the general monsters harder and more varied. Make there be more of, weaknesses to different elements. Make that prevalent, because I don't even notice that happening. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please comment below and let's keep this conversation going. I'd love to hear what some of the vets or newer players feel about the game. Much love, as always. Be safe out there. Comment below, please.